Mr. Spears, I watch the news like everyone else. I know who you are, and I saw Analyze This. I don't need the ramifications that could arise from treating someone like yourself.
Analyze This?
Yeah.
Come on, it's a fucking comedy.
And isn't Sopranos just another comedy at times as well? Welcome to Cut to Black. I am Jim Scampoli.
I'm Jacob Burrows, and I also watched Analyze This, so I'm totally prepared. I mean, I feel like I know the rest of The Sopranos. Do I even need to watch the remaining seasons? I pretty much know it. I watched Analyze This, so we should be fine. But we're still going to do it, though, I think. We're here, Season 2, Episode 1. How you doing, Jim?
I am doing great. I am really excited to be back in Jersey, mixing it up in waste management, maybe dipping our beaks a little bit into some stock scams. It feels good to be back in Sopranos. Yes, we are now discussing Season 2, Episode 1. Guy walks into a psychiatrist's office. This episode was written by Jason Cahill, who wrote Meadowlands and Boca from Season 1. Although he did not write any other Sopranos episodes after this one. Directed by Alan Coulter, who also directed College and Isabella before this, and we will see his name in the future.
Interesting. This episode is kind of setting the stage again. It's kind of reintroducing a lot of stuff, and it does open with this whole montage where I imagine if it had been a year, I'd be more excited about this montage. I'd be like, oh, it's Paulie, it's this guy. But, I mean, we did take a Goodfellas break, but more or less, I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is exactly as I remember it. But I can see why they put it in, but it's kind of just showing that most things are the same. The changes are Melfi's seeing clients in a motel, and Junior's got a new haircut. That's about it.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a nice refresher course, a nice reintroduction. Before we do that, let's do a quick reintroduction ourselves. We are going through every episode of Sopranos. I've seen them all multiple times. Jacob here has seen none. Well, he's seen Season 1. This is his initial inaugural watch here, so there will be no spoilers discussed past Season 2, Episode 1. So if you're also a little 14 years old, you can follow along without any worry. And real quick before we get into it, I do want to read this email we got.
Oh,
You
yeah.
mentioned that we took a quick off-ramp last week to kind of break up the seasons a little bit and watch Goodfellas. And we did get an email from Spencer here, who was also Pugs something on iTunes for the review, which is great. What a great dude. Not only submits a review, also sends a little feedback. So yeah, hey guys, thanks for reading my review on the show. That was really cool. I like that you guys have the difference of perspective and experience with the show. Makes it really stand out from other TV podcasts. The Goodfellas ep was a really cool idea. I learned a lot of new things, and there's never a bad time to rewatch that movie. Hopefully I can do that this weekend. Just an idea. What about doing episode on The Sopranos and Twin Peaks? I believe David Chase has said it was a strong influence, the way it used nature, surrealism, ambiguity. I think there's enough to tie into. And what he says here isn't really a spoiler. Like, I'm sure if someone read this, they'd be like, why are you blanking this out? But I'm trying to keep Jacob as pure as possible.
Thank you.
So there's no real spoilers here. I'm just not going to read it because he does specify like a season and stuff. But he says, not mafia related, but I think it could work. Great podcast. Can't wait to get into Season 2, which might be my favorite. So many classic episodes back to back. Take care. Thank you so much for the feedback. And yes, it is good to hear because we weren't sure. I feel like the Goodfellas ep was a cool little off ramp, and we kept it Sopranos related. So if you like that, let us know. If you thought it was garbage, you can also still let us know.
Yes, this is an interactive show, believe it or not. We are not very good at plugging the email, but if you want to send feedback on any episode at all, actually, like if you know, oh shit, episode 2, season 2, it's the best one of all of them, for example. I can only assume, I don't know. But if you do think that, you can send your thoughts preemptively about that episode, and we will have them next week when we discuss that episode, and so on. If it's about, I guess I'm just not going to open anything with The Sopranos, which means that if you want to send something about the season 2 finale or the season, whatever, you can send it. Jim's going to be checking that, so don't worry too much about spoilers, but obviously we're going week to week, so if there's anything in season 2 coming up that you have a very specific thought about, or just want to give us your take on our take, we were idiots for not realizing this or that, please send it to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com. And we're not very great at plugging this either, but this is called Cut to Black, but our main podcast is Shows What You Know, which you'll find at showswhatyouknow.com, where we discuss all manner of television shows. The Sopranos just happens to be the one we care the most about right now, but we are going to get into Westworld and Handmaid's Tale as those seasons 2 start up in this upcoming week, so we will be doing more live streams alongside Cut to Black.
Yes, but don't worry, the Sopranos will not be taking a back seat. But anyways, back to season 2. Enough of that.
Yeah.
As Jacob was saying, we start off with a nice little montage, and I guess that's an interesting take. But even having that small off ramp of Goodfellas, I was hyped for the montage, and I'm like, oh hell yeah, there's Silvio. This is awesome. There's Chris. I'm like, wait, that's not Christopher Moltisanti. When they're at the class at the beginning to start the montage, it's exam. But anyways, nice reintroduction to everyone. And then who do we see as we get as you'll come to realize, patented Tony walk down the driveway to get the newspaper shot? Who do we see? Big Pussy is back.
Yeah. And he's alive as well. I owe Paulie an apology. I was really trying to put him in the ground last times. And, I was accusing him of this and that. It was all Game of Thrones here for me. I wanted him to cut his head off. That would have been premature. Pussy is indeed alive. I will say his story does kind of stink as far we did bring up. Yeah, it makes perfect sense that he's a bit freaked out by everyone acting so weird around him. But then oh, why didn't you even tell your wife? And he's like, well, there was this 26-year-old, and then they kind of drop it. And I'm like, okay, I guess. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I vaguely remember an interview with David Chase when he was talking about the Big Pussy character in season 1, and he kind of said how, as writers, as they were finishing everything up, they were like, what the fuck happened to Big Pussy?
Nice.
They were kind of like, oh shit, it's a thread they left open, and now they gotta kind of figure out what happened there. I feel like that's I have to find the exact interview, but I feel like he did admit that kind of freely. We're like, wait a minute, so where did he go? And so now he's back, and I think it's also very intentional that because we do see little segments throughout the episode that even Tony is still kind of checking up on him, and he's still kind of side-eyeing him. And when he does have some of that extra aggression, he's going to direct it at Big Pussy because this dude just disappeared. And now he just shows up and he wants all his collections off the street. He thinks he's going to get it without maybe a little taste wasn't taken off the top.
Yeah. Yeah. And he does pat him down and everything. They leave it fairly ambiguous so far, but that's interesting. Oddly enough, that's the type of writing as far as television that I almost respect more than when someone says oh, we have a 5-season plan. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I know you don't. But if someone says oh yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, we just threw shit in the air, and that sounds bad, but actually one of our favorite shows, Breaking Bad, is the same thing, where they didn't really know what was going to happen in the next season ever. They were just focusing on what makes sense for these characters right now. And that's why I really like that they leave it open to all possibilities, as far as anything feels like it could happen, as long as it makes sense with the characters. And Pussy's back.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because I like both sides, because I love when you can either rewatch or when you watch a show and you realize like, oh my God, they planted a seed for that 2 seasons ago and now they're paying it off. But I love when writers are smart enough. Well, they're honest enough to admit, well, this we didn't fully have planned, but they're smart enough to really mine their own storytelling and figure out the best way dramatically or ways to pay off threads that they maybe didn't have set in stone, but they're able to work with it. So yeah, all great things. So yeah, Big Pussy's back. And yeah, like you mentioned, I'd like how, Tony's doing that thing where he's like, who's your boss? Who's your boss? And he's yelling at him and being a piece of shit. And then he seems like he's warmed up to him and he's like, come here, you. But then there's still that pat down moment. And then again, he has to be like, all right, come here. And now it's like, finally, he's kind of showing him a little love. And I like that it kind of still makes sense for everyone here. It makes sense because Big Pussy points out, like, you show up at my house in the middle of the day, you've never done that, and you're saying like, hey, I'm your friend. But even though Tony, I mean, as we, the audience, I believe Tony that he was just trying to, let him know, like, he was being genuine, even though, yeah, he's trying to fish out where he was at. But I feel like he was being genuine and maybe would have tried to help if he knew some shit was going down.
But I mean, it could have been like, I'm not a rat, but he's acting like he wants me to reveal that I'm a rat, and if I don't, he's gonna kill me.
True. Yeah, very true. Because yeah, it makes sense why he would take off. Yeah, some of the other stuff, the details in there, it definitely comes off a little fishy. Where it's like, yeah, he met someone through his back surgery or something, not surgery, like his back issues. He met a doctor, then he meets a 26-year-old, and he's hanging out in Puerto Rico. But now he's back because, hey, he's got a family, he's got kids in college, he needs to make some money.
Yeah, and then Paulie's like, oh, it checked it out. It seems to check out. And I'm like, okay, Paulie, I guess.
I love your...
How did he do that research exactly? I'd like to know. Like, did he go to Puerto Rico and really, really like hit the pavement? Or like, how deep did his research go, really?
And I like that we don't really see... because when Carmela's like, Tony, who are you talking at down there?
Yeah.
Well, fine, bring up some water then. Like, she's all pissed. But I expected there to be a moment where at least the family's like, oh, hey, where have you been? Like, he's back. This is great. But it just cuts them sitting on the couch and they're just like drinking coffee and then having a discussion about, Uncle June. And
maybe they just didn't want to have a scene where they're like, Uncle Pussy. Maybe.
Yeah, so then we hear that Phil Leotardo, I believe is his name, he's taken over Junior's crew. Yeah, Phil Parisi, not Leotardo. I think Leotardo's from Goodfellas, I forget. But yeah, Philly Spoons Parisi has taken over Uncle Junior's crew, and then we get to see him, we get to see a nice little setup where a guy gets dropped off at the airport just to get picked up by him.
Yeah.
And
it's an elaborate ruse, basically, where they got the bag, they throw it in the thing, and the guy doing the actual wet work is also one of Junior's soldiers. So that's why he feels free and loose with giving all this information. But also, like, I guess he gets killed for having a big mouth, but I guess essentially it's for being disloyal to Tony and talking a bunch of shit, basically, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a clear, like, he's clearly one of those guys that's probably like around Tony and stuff, like, oh yeah, okay, cool, Tony, you're the best. But then to the crew, it's like, we'll never respect this guy. We're loyal to Junior, and plus, he's crazy because he goes to a therapist and he tried to smother his mother. It's very reminiscent of that scene with Junior in season 1 when he's like ducked down in the back of the car and Mikey has to shoot the dude for making the crack about, his own mother wants him whacked or whatever.
Well, and funnily enough, it's kind of the same thing they're talking about. So both Junior and Tony wants to kill people for talking shit about their family.
Yeah, so it's a nice little setup. And then I like the detail because he just shoots him in the face in the car, but then he has to like hold his ears because it's like, holy shit, this is fucking loud.
Yeah, that's nice. You know what I'm excited for, though, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited too.
If you're watching live or on the YouTube, we have finally gotten our act together, and we do have the walkout counter and we have the death counter, and they're right next to each other. Now, we haven't been keeping you up to date, so we can tell you now, after rigorous rewatching and calculations, we're sitting there like a couple of people working for Christopher, basically, with just crunching these numbers, and we've come up with that in season 1, in our opinion, there were 13 deaths and 5 bona fide walkouts. We're talking about when he storms out of the therapist's office and such. Now, most people will count 15 deaths for season 1, but we are not counting the old lady in the coffin, and we are not counting the kid who we hear about jumping off a bridge after doing drugs. Is that right?
That is correct. And we may have counted when Tony storms out of Meadow's room after he finds out that the coach has slept with her friend. But it's a walkout. I'm counting it.
That's a walkout. To be fair, though, we've been pretty strict about if he's in the therapist's office, and even if he walks out angry, if there's an indication that it's the end of the session, it's like, no, he was leaving anyway. So that's why we kind of have to do that. I realize now, I thought it was going to be more balanced, but I feel like as the show progresses, a lot of people are going to die, and possibly Tony will get more emotionally stable. I'm not sure, but we may get fewer walkouts. I don't know. Right now it's 13-5. Well, which is a lie actually, because we're about to pump it up to 14.
Yeah, throw Philly Spoons Parisi on the counter.
Oh, poor you.
That's right. We have now increased it to 14. How many hours did we work on getting this together? It was so worth it, though.
Something we talked about for so long, and then finally put in the effort to put in the death counter. So there you go. Up to 14.
Yep, that's I mean, should we just end the show now, or like? Yeah, so they kill the guy. What happens after that? I think we go to the stockbroker's office, and we see Christopher just sleeping there.
I think before that, though, we get a quick visit with Melfi, who's
right,
working out of a motel, like kind of a dingy motel, and Tony gives her the call, like basically once the whack is confirmed, he gives her the okay that things are clear, you can head back home. And she's like, "Are you watching me? How'd you get this number?" And then we go to Christopher's stock scam.
Right, and which is it's an interesting scene because. And just like the first scene of the episode, it's really nice to see something that's so out of the context of the show that you kind of have to piece together what's happening as you're watching it. Like they don't ever like turn to the camera like, and then we started the stock exchange thing to try to do this. I mean, it's kind of very clearly explained what's going on, but it's still nice to just be thrown into it, and it's all explained through action, like these two weird guys who beat the shit out of the only like stock. What are they doing? Sales? They're not brokers. Whatever they are.
It's kind of like sales, because they're just calling and just being really pushy on old people to make them buy this stock that's basically a dud, and then they could sell it because they have the Wabistics.
Yeah.
Push the Wabistic stock.
Yeah, so they pour coffee on the guy before giving any type of other feedback, which is improper management practice as far as I understand it. Then they beat the shit out of him too.
Well, it's great because Christopher has his very own Christopher and Brendan to worry about now. It's such a nice touch, because what we saw with Chris and Brendan in season 1 with Tony, and now Chris has to deal with it. But as we've seen, like, there's not a ton of Chris in this episode, but him in the montage and him just like sleeping at work, it seems, and there's a later scene with Adriana where they're arguing. It seems like he's getting a little bit into the drugs these days. He's kind of partaking a bit more on the drug side.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, I feel watching this that like these guys are like, that's not the correct way to handle this, right? As a reasonable person would think. And then it's like, I guess it's like, it's a few scenes later, so I'm just skipping ahead, but just to mention that when Tony finds out, of course it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is not how we handle this situation. They're like, you sell this shit. And they're like stomping him down and threatening the manager with a knife. And it's like, we opened this to be more legit. Remember? You can't run this like they're drug dealers, you morons.
Yeah, and well, it's nice too because it's not like Christopher isn't really telling them to do this. These guys are clearly just dumb, but they know Chris and Tony and what they're involved in, so they think they're gonna do, the movie gangster intimidation stuff in a stock brokerage office and get brownie points. Like they think they're gonna get in with Tony Soprano, and I mean, yeah, like kind of just playing through this storyline of what we see. It's great when they're at the bar and they're like, "Does Tony ever mention us?"
Yeah, I also love that. Like two lovesick little boys. Like, what's he like when you hang out with him? Does he ever talk about me? It's pretty great.
Oh yes, thank you, Chet. Now, Phil Leotardo is not from Goodfellas. It's just I pictured the actor, and that actor's in Goodfellas, and yes, Phil Leotardo is on The Sopranos.
I googled it, and then there was like, is this character on The Sopranos? And I almost like threw my screen across the room, as I always do when there's something that I should not be aware of yet.
I do appreciate the correction. I do know when I said it, I was wrong, but I didn't bother trying to explain it. But I know some people out there were probably yelling at their iPhones or their YouTube screen when I made that mistake. But you are correct. Yeah, Phil Leotardo is on The Sopranos, but the actor was in Goodfellas.
That's it. We're mixing ourselves up. Next time I don't know if there's a lot of crossover with Twin Peaks, so maybe that's a better one for next time, so we don't get literally really confused. Or maybe we will. Like, did Christopher kill Laura Palmer? Who was it? I don't know.
Frank Vincent, rest in peace, by the way. So yeah, I enjoy what is it? It's Matthew
Chippendale
and Sean, I believe. Those are Matt and Sean. Now, Matthew, the dude the actor that plays him, he was in A Bronx Tale, and he's also like a weirdo guy. Like he had to go to jail for murder or something like that. Was it murder? I think.
So he's a method actor. Are you talking about the character in that story?
In 2005, he was arrested by the Yonkers Police Department, charged with 7th-degree misdemeanor criminal possession of controlled substance. And then he was arrested on suspicion of murdering an off-duty police officer, Daniel Akanchangui. I don't know how to say his name.
Less good, less fine with that.
They confronted because the name of the actor is Lilo Brancato Jr. He confronted Brancato and his accomplice, Stephen Armento, outside a vacant house next to his own after hearing glass break. And he waited for backup, and then a gunfight erupted, and the off-duty cop was shot, taken to hospital where he died, and then Brancato was arrested.
So he is a method actor. Like he can't tell, just like the character. Like those two characters, I imagine they also like love the smell of Blockbuster. They get high off it because they're so, like you said, they're doing the mafia thing that they've seen on TV because they're like, yeah, we're working for Tony now. We're tough guys, but they don't know when to do what. So I guess, he really got into this role.
Yeah, he was sentenced in 2009 to 10 years, and they let him out in 2013. So, just quick little trivia for you for the Matthew Bellavacqua character.
I'm sure they'll put him in the prequel then, since he's out and cleared and everything. So, great stuff.
So, yeah, things are getting heated up at the stock brokerage. Hot coffee being thrown on people, knives, threats, all kinds of great stuff. We do hear because after this it's what Tony meets with the lawyer, right?
Yeah, which is a very short scene, and I think the point of it is kind of to give us some information mainly, and to throw in like an inciting incident of your sister's here. No, not that one, the other one. Like it's not really much of a scene in itself, the meeting with the lawyer. Because it's kind of like just telling us, thanks for the thing about Webistics. Oh, yeah, we're doing this with Webistics. And what's going on with Junior? Oh, he's trying to get out just until they give him the sentence, and they might do it. And Tony's like, yeah, whatever. And then they call about the sister. I mean, Carmilla does.
Yes, yeah, Janice is in town. And she has like an Indian name, Parvati or something like that?
Yeah, Parvati. Yeah.
So yeah, so things happening with the family and the other family, as is wont to happen on The Sopranos.
Speaking of which, I mean, then we get an emotional family reunion. I'm not talking about Parvati. I'm talking about Pussy meeting all the guys again and getting all the Goodfellas, the Godfather quotes that he needs and everything, right?
Yes, yeah. Everyone's having a good old time in the back room of the Bing. Paulie and Big Pussy are laughing as if, the last time they saw each other, Paulie wasn't ready to, murder him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Big Pussy's doing a good job of like trying to keep it light, I guess, because he's asking about his money, and then it's like, oh, we got it, but I mean, hey, maybe some of it got lost in the shuffle. He brings up Jimmy Altieri and how he was the rat, and Paulie makes the comment like he died with two assholes because they shot him in the head, I guess, gave him another asshole. And then we go to Silvio's famous Godfather impressions, which we maybe need to put a footnote in this scene and come back to it later. Not in this episode, but when we discuss further episodes. That's
okay.
all.
Or when we discuss Godfather.
Yes.
So yes, I mean, that's basically it. And then, as we said, Paulie pops in to say, yeah, it's totally checks out. I did all the research like I always do, really thoroughly. Like, remember, like when you asked me to check if he had a wire and I did all the research so thoroughly like that, I did it on the clinic. And then,
I'm really excited to see how if your trust of Paulie changes over these episodes. But I mean, you're very suspicious of him.
Well, it was my bad. I thought he murdered him, and he didn't. But then, to be fair, David Chase didn't know either. So I think I'm in the clear on that one. And he did throw in that line at the end of last season, like, so are you okay with Tony going to see a psychiatrist? To me, that's kind of like, so do you want to kill Tony later or what? And Silvio's like, what? Shut the fuck up. And then he's like, all right, I'll do it in season 3.
Yeah, he's throwing out some feelers for sure. And then we have the, quintessential Sopranos is when the family are sitting at the breakfast nook or whatever you want to call that. And Tony comes down in his wife beater in his robe. So now Janice is here. We meet his older sister, and there's kind of like little passive aggressive, like what just classic family stuff. And, he makes some comments about her clothes. She talks about her therapy. He's like, oh, who's paying for that? We find out she's on disability. She's such a classic character, at least for me, like in my family. There are a few Janices like this where, they get on disability and then they're fucking just like kind of proud weirdos.
Right.
And I mean, not as far as where they have like in my family anyways, where they have like a separate Indian name who's like the goddess of fertility or whatever it was. But just the weird scams and the niceties, but there's always like an ulterior motive. So I like how it's kind of all right there, right from the jump. And then we get kind of like a brother and sister moment where he has to sneak out because he wants to take a haul off that ciggy that she's thinking.
Speaking of a brother and sister moment, what about Anthony Jr. and Meadow? They are like, it's just been a few months in Showtime as far as I understand it, but it's been a year in real time, and you can really tell because they're like, yeah, haircut, that'll match it. He looks like a different human being, like. He's been exchanged. Well, he looks like a real human being now, where before he was just kind of a pudgy something or other, and now it's like, oh shit, this guy's gonna grow up to be a boxer.
Yeah, it's like a complete transformation. Nice growth spurt over the past few months for AJ Soprano. And as far as like with Tony, I like that we're seeing the stuff. Anytime the Livia's brought up and it's like, oh, she's dead to me, which, very understandable because she tried to have him whacked. And they kind of throw out an explanation for the stroke where it's this, I mean, I didn't fully get, it's like, it's tied into her borderline personality disorder, but they say that the symptoms are still the same. So it's almost the same as having a stroke. I don't know how like medically legitimate their explanation is, if it's something they made up for the show, or if it's something like legit that happens.
Well, it sounded like them saying it's psychosomatic, meaning that it's like, yeah, she thinks she's feeling this pain, so of course she is. Like freaking, Better Call Saul. Like that's what it sounded like. I haven't rewatched the scene, and they do spit some jargon, but basically that's Tony saying, yeah, a doctor told me it was bullshit. So basically giving us, I think, an explanation if it's true. I mean, I'm sure it is that a doctor told him that. So at least we have some sort of clarity on that. Yeah, of course she was feeling the pain, but she was convincing herself of it. And even that, I feel like it could have been fake anyway. That could just be because they couldn't find the proper symptoms. So they're like, oh, it must be psychosomatic, but actually it's just fake. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess going back to just Livia Soprano in general, the best explanation is that it is completely fake, but she's able to even convince herself that it's real.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense because she's like that with everything.
Yes, yeah.
Hmm.
And then then we get back to the Bing. It's like a weird cut because then all of a sudden it cuts and we're at the Bing, and then Chris is just like kind of happy having a drink, like, oh hey Tone, and as soon as he walks in, he's just getting strangled. Basically, like he like walks into Tony's fist, and he has to educate him a bit on you should be down at the brokerage. We're trying to make this, it's a legit business that we're scamming, of course, but hey, well, what's a little white collar crime between friends?
This is also where Gandolfini's acting is very good because, like, the arc of this episode is him falling back into kind of a deeper hole, and they don't really do or need to do a lot of stuff as far as the plot with that. Like, Pussy's back, ostensibly that's a really good thing because the reason he fell into that deep depression was thinking that Pussy was dead or gone one way or another, and now he's back, and Tony's still, I mean, he hugs him, he wants to believe and everything, but all the negative emotions and stuff, he doesn't have a way of processing it anymore. He doesn't have a therapist anymore. And in the scene with Christopher, you could just kind of see in his face he's got a little bit of extra sweat on him, and he does explain it. Like, it's weird because he is being calm and kind, but he's like intensely doing it and like almost holding himself back. So you kind of see where it's going because it's not that far after this that he's driving off the road.
Yes, yeah, and kind of a little forgivable snafu because season 1 they did say that the house sold, but I guess we can assume that the deal fell through, what have you. It doesn't matter. Either way, they still have the house, and now it's on the market again. So you could forgive it, and because we do see that they're at the house and it's been trashed because there's a high school nearby. So if you live in New Jersey and you're a high school kid, abandoned home, might as well go in there and drink and then trash it.
Well, I thought they said like it went into escrow, and I don't know what that means, so I will take whatever explanation they give for anything.
Well, I guess that's fair. Yeah, in escrow, I think is when you put like X amount of the sale price in a third party as you finalize, whether it be like an inspection or credit checks, what have you, maybe get the mortgage. I don't know if the mortgage is done by that point. I'm not a homeowner, but it is like a point where things can fall through.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it adds up, as you said. And yeah, as you also said, they're in the home then and talking about how kids broke in, and Tony's acting like he's going to literally kill these kids. And Carmela starts listing off like all the bad stuff that he's like. We haven't necessarily seen him any worse than usual, but she's sort of listing off how you're doing this, you're doing that, you're slowly getting worse, which is the truth.
Yeah, and it's great because if anyone is going to know, it's Carmela. So it is like a nice touch there because we don't get a lot of Carmela in this episode outside of her just reacting to what Tony's doing, but she's going to pick up on it before anyone. And yes, his aggression slowly building and building. And we hear that there's a party coming up for Janice now that she's back in town, and we're going to meet Carmela's parents because now that Ding Dong the witch is dead, they'll come by the house because they don't have to deal with Livia Soprano.
Yes. Tony
And
has a great line of like, "I've been in a great mood lately," and she's like, "Right," and saying like, yeah, that he needs to go back to therapy because he's self-medicating, and about them not having sex. But I mean, were they having sex before? A and B, self-medicating wasn't. I mean, I wasn't. Is that doesn't everyone do that? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if maybe your self medication is a little booze, maybe it's a little a weed, maybe it's some OxyContin. Who
Right.
knows what your own self medication might be?
Paracetamol. So then we have Christopher explaining to Chippendale that they're morons, and like you said, we've gone from Christopher being at the bottom of the ladder, and I don't think he understands or appreciates that he's actually moving up. Like, there hasn't been a moment of like, yeah, I got two guys. He's kind of more realizing like Tony has to be to him the guy he is to them, because Tony's like, you fucking idiot, and then Christopher has to go like, you fucking idiots. So he doesn't actually get to, like, I'm sure he was like, oh, I want to move up and get there, and now it's like, I more money, more problems. I have headaches now, and people who are idiots underneath me.
Yep, more money, more problems, like my man Puff said. And
Yeah.
this this is the closest they do to kind of trying to spell it out to the audience what's going on, because Christopher has a line like, "Tell me about this Wobistix."
Yeah.
And they're like, "The Wobistix is the 60-cent stock," and blah blah blah. You know, we're dumping it, and but it makes sense, because I almost would also buy that Christopher still doesn't understand what's going on. But then from there, we get to see Janice brings Meadow to visit Livia Soprano. And I like this because, I mean, I don't doubt that Meadow loves his grandmother. And even though there's not really like an inciting thing, it feels to me that it's part of her rebellion to go visit her grandma.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we saw her visiting her before, but it's just another way to be like, fuck you, dad, and mom and dad. I'm going to see grandma.
Yeah, there's no way she ever went to see her grandma at the home where she was staying, you know, when Tony was going there all the time. But now it's like, I love you and I can never be without you, grandma. I love you so much. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it's genuine. It's part of her rebellion, but it's also genuine when you compare it to Parvati and what we find out about her. Not quite so much.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and I love the line when she's like, at night they hit us.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, we jumped over a line that I like, where Christopher's lecturing these two guys, and they come in and give him coffee, and at the end, he's just like, "This is cold, by the way." He gives it back, which makes me wonder how damaged was that guy when they poured that coffee on him.
Yeah, if they got cold coffee, then it's not even that big of a deal. Why are they getting all bent out of shape?
Hmm.
Well, I guess those teams, because yeah, then we get Tony. Tony's finally grooving. Tony's finally in a good spot. He's just driving down the road, cranking some tunes. They do cut to like some of the blown out buildings, and it reminds me a bit of like Tony looking at the painting.
Yeah.
Because the buildings do. I mean, they look, and they're like dead inside and crumbling. And then of course the CD starts skipping. And you'd almost think that's something we wouldn't have to deal with anymore. But I've had MP3 skip, or I've had Bluetooth skip, so I still get this feel, even though it's a CD. And yeah, he starts beating the shit out of his car, and then has a kind of, panic, like a mini panic attack, and crashes into basically a post or whatever side of the road. But the airbag saves him.
It's interesting that he is grooving, as you said, because it just makes the scene more dynamic. And because otherwise it would just be him like driving along normally, then getting annoyed and crashing. But it actually is starting with him with this smile and energy. But it has this type of energy, like when he was talking to Christopher, of like the way I get when I'm almost like feeling too good, and it's actually because you're close to the edge of falling off and getting really annoyed about something. And I recognize that feel as well, whether it is Bluetooth related or not. So it just adds a bit to the scene, and it's part of his frantic thing of like, no, I'm in a great mood, fuck you. But actually, it's all building inside, and yeah, he crashes the car.
Yeah, and then we pick up with Tony, where he's trying therapy with a new guy, as we heard at the top of the show. And it's just, I mean, never mind that it's not Melfi. It is kind of like, it's just a weird, jarring thing to see him in therapy with a guy for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, they almost make it a little reveal because they just show him talking at first in a chair, and it's kind of like, wait, that's not the chair he's usually in, and it's like, is this a different office? And then, yes, of course it is. It's a different guy because Melfi thinks he's following him around or following her around and looking at her motel and everything. So, and he has to say like, see, my mother and me had a falling out, and it's like, oh yeah, well, tell me about the falling out, and it's like just family stuff, you know, because he's already done this once and he went too far and things got out of hand, so he knows he needs this. And I love that he always says to Carmilla like, no therapy, but then he knows he needs it and he tries to get it, but he can't. And that's he's not going to say that to her. He's going to say no therapy, even though he has realized after the crash at least that would kind of be a good idea.
Yeah, and especially like, never mind going too far initially and kind of having his initial therapy situation fall apart. Like getting to that, it took so long to get to that point with Melfi where they had an understanding and a trust where he could speak on certain things and speak about it in a certain way. And they had a rapport, they had a rhythm, and now you have to start all over. And so much has happened since then as well, but you have to go back to the beginning. It's such a daunting thing to even try to think about, and it'll take so long to get where they already were and then try to get better from there. So it kind of spells all that out in a pretty simple kind of fun scene, which is nice.
Yes, and even he's not going to have a chance to do that because I think he's realizing now as well how unique Melfi is in even taking on this challenge. Like she had to defend it to all her family, they're all therapists, and to her therapists and everyone involved, they're like, no, just drop him, drop the client. But she was the one who actually saw something like, no, I can actually help, I can do a difference here. And in comparison, here it's like, what sort of business? And he's like, waste management. And he's like, I watch the news, you fucking mobster piece of shit. So he doesn't even get a chance because he's like, I'm not taking new clients right now. After a bit of jargon about analyze this.
And then we come back to another classic Soprano family party. But it's nice because it's also, with us, the audience, meeting like his sisters and stuff for the first time, and of course Carmilla's parents, you get a sense that like a lot of people are now coming out of the woodwork because Livia is gone, and a lot of people that just stayed away because it's like, I don't want to deal with her shit. And it's spelled out in a great way, like when Janice is yelling and then AJ's like holding his ears real quick. It's such a funny shot because it's like, I don't know, the family's all excited, but he's kind of like, oh, fuck, shut up. This is so loud.
I think I might have missed that. Oh, no, yeah, there
real
it is.
Fast. It's funny because it's just when I think his sister Barb comes.
Yeah.
And
they're all excited to hug each other.
And then Tony comes in the room and like yells something, and then she goes, ah! And then AJ just holds his ears because he can't handle it.
Yeah, that's a good shot. I just found it. But yes, it's interesting from the standpoint of, Livia's gone, so now things are changing, but also just from a production and technical standpoint. If you put all these characters in episode 1 of season 1, I'd be like, I don't know who Tony is. Like, who the fuck are these people? And now it's actually broadening things out and giving you more dimensions to these characters and these families, where in season 1, I think if they'd introduced his sisters, it would have been overkill because we're still getting to know him and everything going on in his life and in his business and everything, so that they just mention like, oh yeah, the sister up there, or what, that sister or that sister. That's enough of, like we were saying earlier, of like dropping a little hint. And maybe the writers didn't even know what sort of people these characters were, but now it's like, okay, now we can actually delve into this and it can have a meaning and a connection to the overall themes of family and things like that.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we did first meet Janice in that flashback where she was his older sister was being taken to the amusement park or whatever. Right. Then we meet Carmilla's parents and her mother, who was in Goodfellas. She played Karen Hill's mother. I like the way this scene plays out too, because it's like, yes, Livia Soprano is like a fucking cancer that scares everything away or like rots you out from the inside. But the way the mother brings up what she said to her on her wedding day is that Tony will get sick of you. But then she was telling the truth, kind of, and she was right in a way. And that's like even more annoying or more hurtful, is that the crazy lady, the crazy like bane of existence was actually telling you the truth.
Yeah.
It hurt even more.
Yeah, and I mean, her mother, Carmilla's mother, doesn't seem like, I mean, compared to Livia, she's a saint, but it's like the way she's ordering around her husband to go and get the pears, and the way she would even bring that up to her daughter, like, remember that thing? Yeah, great. I was having a good day. Thanks for bringing that up.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Because it's just another. It's like, yeah, a couple levels down, but it's just another level of how like your family and sometimes specifically your parents can really fucking twist the knife.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a scene with the two sisters as well, talking about the state of things, and I'm calling her Parvati because I can't remember. I don't know the names yet, really, honestly. But yeah, I'm calling her Parvati, and she's that's her. I'm not going to use her dead name. And she's like, he's selling the house, and Tony's other sister's like, fucking don't even go there. Like, don't fucking do it. Like, just chill out and don't get too involved. Because, of course, as we find out, the only reason she's here and doing these things is that she wants a slice of the pie. And as she says, there's no will yet, meaning that she can get everything written off to her. Like Tony gives a shit anyway. Like the annoying thing, like he doesn't care about getting the value of the house. He couldn't care less about that. He's got these, Webistic stock. They're up to 80. He's doing fine. But it's all this conflict of like, yeah, I'm gonna go and take the signs out when the house is like a cancer in Tony's mind that he wants to get rid of, and she's taking the sign out, and she's gonna stick around and do all this shit with the mother, and then he just wants to not think about it, but she's there raking up all the wounds.
Well, and you're completely right. He doesn't give a fuck, but what's great is now he gives a fuck just because of the way she's handling it.
Yeah.
Like if she kind of came in and was like, Tony, let me take care of the house. I'll put it on the market, blah, blah, blah. And in the end, it would probably be understood he wouldn't have cared, like as far as what would happen with the money or anything like that. But the fact that she kind of sneaks in and is doing this stuff behind his back, now he really cares about it. And plus, I mean, just his elevating like aggression that we've seen throughout this episode. But I mean, I guess before we get to the scene where he freaks out, I do like to point out I love the detail of like she leaves her like the family's having a party for her, and she leaves early and gets in this giant Hummer with like a black guy driving. Like, not that it matters that he's black, but it's such a random like classic detail. Like, oh yeah, that's that character. She's like a free spirit. Like she's just bouncing around from people to people, and no doubt like scamming them in a weird way.
What was she saying, that she's gonna go do a music video or something?
Yeah, she's trying to get video equipment for a music video, and she's going to a friend's art show or something or other.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, they're gonna finance her video and getting it, like, yeah, whatever. But Tony sees the sign after that and has a real proper freak out where, like, as you said, he wasn't really caring about it before, but I mean, now it's like, I'm just a little fat kid to her. And as you said, there's the flashback. I never got to go to the carnival. Damn you.
What's Janice get to go? Janice gets to do everything. And I hate to admit that I relate maybe too close to this scene when he's like getting really mad and kind of freaking out a bit.
Yeah.
Because I've seen myself, but I guess in my defense, I'll sit there and I'll get mad about somebody like motherfuck, fuck, and then a second later I'll be like, oh, hey, that's cool. Hey, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't need therapy. Ha ha ha. I'm driving off the road on the way to work. You fine, Jim? You doing okay?
But I relate maybe way too close to the way he, like, I love the way he keeps reacting. And then even he seems to calm for a second because Carmela's like, look, what do you care about this shit? Your friends are here. Just go out. And then he goes, this fucking bitch. And she's like, go have a beer.
Yeah, I relate to Carmilla more in this scene because she's makes so much sense and she's taking it, she's putting up with it to a point. But then when he's like getting so mad and so frustrated and thumping the wall, I mean, I have been there as well, of being so overwhelmed with anger that it doesn't even make sense and you just want to scream. And that's when she's like, go to your friends, this is not getting you anywhere, this is destructive behavior, you're not releasing anger, you're building it. So yeah, go have a beer is her solution is. But he goes out and I don't quite know what to make of the following scene, but as you said earlier, he's kind of taking his aggression out on Pussy and calling him a fucking moron or whatever.
Yep.
I don't know why exactly, except that he's really angry.
Well, yeah, I like he's doing that thing that a lot of people do where I mean, obviously he's just, he doesn't have his target to point his anger at, so he's going to point it at like the next person. And Big Pussy's a good target just because, like we were talking about, it's probably something Tony wished for, this whole year or however long it's been, is that Big Pussy's okay and that they didn't make a mistake and kill him or something. But him being back kind of does still reintroduce the whole, well, what if we were right? Like, because now it's not this whole like, oh, great, he's back, things are back to normal. There's this extra anxiety over what if. And so he's like the perfect target. And it's kind of like those scenes in Scrubs where someone is mean to one person and then they go and be mean to the next person and it causes a chain reaction of like shitting on each other. And then Big Pussy just starts shitting on his wife and kind of diffuses it pretty well. And everyone's cracking up about how Big Pussy has an ugly wife that looks like a dog. And then they're like reminiscing about a famous actress or something that Big Polly has to grab his dick. Like, oh my God, oh my don.
Well, there's another aspect as well of this scene that I don't know how. I mean, it's important as far as framing. I don't know if it's important as far as setting the tone moving forward, but it has been previously the case that Tony's been, even though he's a capo, he's one of the guys. And the way they just frame this shot with the four guys standing together, him standing off on his own, it's very much isolating him, where they have this banter going on about this and that. And not only is he disconnected in his mind because he's like freaking out and angry over things, he's also physically further away from them, kind of cementing that, yeah, he could go in and bullshit with them, but no one's ever going to tell him he's a fucking moron anymore, because he's the big boss now. So it's kind of not the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because it does even go further from there as well, where when he starts to lighten up, but then things kind of still get trippy, right? Like he's almost about to have another attack or, pass out or something. And it is all kind of focused on Big Pussy as, he's like staring at him or what have you.
Yeah, and they're having fun and dancing, and he's almost fainting. And I almost thought, like, is he going to fall over right now? Because that would be bad as far as his reputation and stuff like that. And I guess that's kind of what part of why he goes to Melfi a little bit later. But first, we have a scene with Christopher where it's going less good. There's a bit more trouble in heaven, in paradise, as it were.
And I love the initial reveal. Because we come in and Adriana's pissed off at Christopher, and we do find out there's a little bit more to it. But then we get the reveal that the fucking two guys are there, and I thought like that was what she was annoyed, as they were supposed to have like a night out, and he just brought them. Like they're hanging out with those guys. Similar
to when Tony, they had their anniversary dinner, and he was doing a covert talk with the people from New York. But yeah, no, he also left her gas burner on, so she would have died if she lit a cigarette. And all that stuff happened off screen, but it all makes sense because we've seen him do a bit more drugs, and she calls him a junkie or whatever, and he's yelling and being really aggressive and mean about it. And I love that neither of them really gives a shit that these two guys are there, really cementing how low on the hierarchy they are, because it doesn't even matter that they hear this, at least not when they're feeling this bad.
Yeah, because even like he backhands her, but then she just like smacks him back. And then he's like, yeah, she walks out and he's like, yeah, get out of here, you whore. Go get my dinner. Or like some dumb line like that.
Yeah. which is like, I want them to work out. Like they have a night, like when he's sitting there sleeping at the start, she comes in and kisses his cheek, and we have a nice shot of the cheek and her lips just coming in, and it's so sweet. And then off screen, he just, it's totally believable because we've seen him do so many stupid things that is like, yeah, of course he fucked this up when we weren't looking. Because she's a sweetheart, and the only bad thing she's ever done is try to be a music producer when she doesn't know shit about music. But that's about it. She's great.
And they have the two guys.
You ever cap motherfuckers together with Mr. T?
I
And he
love
just looks at them.
And they're like, we'll do anything. Wet work, pick up his shirts.
Yeah, these are pretty good characters. I can see them doing something stupid, so stupid within an episode or two that they need to be taken out of the equation too.
And then we get Tony shows up as Melfi's at a diner, and they have a nice back and forth where, I mean, she's rightfully furious, and because that's the big thing is, like, if it has it been a year in the show? No, right?
I mean, I definitely don't feel like it's been a year.
Right? Because I can't imagine she would have been working out of a hotel for a full year. But obviously, the year is just a nod to us, the audience, back in the day that had to wait a year for the new season.
Yeah, I mean, it says on Wikipedia that it's several months, but
That
I
makes
mean,
more sense.
but still, I don't know where they got that from. But just judging by the fact that everything's kind of the same, yeah, it feels like it's been a few months. Because like what's like the reason he didn't call earlier to say everything's okay, you can come back, is that they just had to cap this last guy, and if he waited a year to do that, he doesn't deserve to go to this diner and even have her say fuck you.
Absolutely. But yeah, so we learned that one of her much as she feared, one of her patients did commit suicide while she was, indisposed, hiding for her life because of Tony. But yeah, Tony's also just trying to come in and let her know, like, hey, I crashed my car. Things are getting worse. But how in her right mind can she take him back on as a patient after what happened?
Yeah. And like he even says, like, maybe you can refer me to someone else. And she's so like, she's not only does she not want to be his therapist, she doesn't want him to have a therapist because of this situation that he has put her in. How could I possibly refer you to someone else after you've done this to me? So she's gone over to the side of her ex-husband, who was like, oh, he's a piece of shit, he's a scumbag. So that's gotta hurt even worse than just her not taking him back on.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, clearly the most like aggressive we've seen her towards Tony, which makes sense because usually it's more in a patient doctor situation. But now it's like, here we are in real life. Things have affected her personally. And then Tony's just kind of coming back with the request of like, hey, let's let bygones be bygones. Under the bridge, I need therapy again. I'm gonna pass out in front of my underlings. Help me.
He does say that I swear to God, no one got killed because of you. I guess that's kind of true. Because he would have killed that guy anyway, or what do you think?
Yeah, I guess it's definitely like a gray area, but it's also, I think it's very important that he didn't say it was okay until that guy was dead. So it's like it's a little white lie that, if it depends on what kind of point of view you want to take. But yeah, I agree. He probably would have killed him no matter what.
But that also doesn't sound great, because it's not like he said, I didn't kill anybody. He says, nobody got killed because of you, meaning that it's all right, I would have killed those guys anyway. And her response, reasonably, is, get out of my life. Is what she yells at him, and just goes back to her crossword or whatever she's doing. I mean, we're seeing her in a different context, but it's also like she's acting differently, but also visually, like we have, but this is a non-professional context. Her hair looks worse than usual. Like they do all this stuff, I think, intentionally to, show, I guess she's been living in this motel too. Like all of these things are affecting her state of mind as far as Tony, I think, because when they had their last session, it was like, okay, I have a thing up my sleeve, but I'm not like, in the end, she was like, okay, fuck, I'll have to do the thing. But now she's like, she's had to do the thing and she's mad about it too. And as you said, the suicide is a huge part of that, no doubt.
Yeah, and I like how they play the rest of the episode out, where it's just kind of Tony walks out, and he's kind of in like, it's like he's just in like obviously like some sort of deep thought, like thinking over his life apparently, and then he just shows up at home, and it's just like a kind of a routine. Like, here's Carmela, of course she's gonna heat up some leftovers, but they just kind of sit in silence, and it's pretty low key end for the way they keep building his aggression.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's nice because it's like you almost wonder, is he gonna just freak out all of a sudden? Like, is he gonna sit there and then all of a sudden flip the fucking bowl over and start yelling what a fucking bukiak Melfi is?
Well, I like it. I like it because, as I said at the start, the montage sort of shows you that everything is the same, and the ending shows you that it isn't. And like the first episode sets up the thing of, a guy walks into a therapist's office. That's going to be the framework of this show. And I don't know. I'm gonna assume that at some point he does get back to being Melfi's patient. But this at least gives us the promise that that's not going to happen immediately, because he doesn't have that anymore. The reason he comes outside in this shot, as you said, with really strong sunlight on him, and it's color corrected really interestingly, or color graded, I should say, where it's almost a bit dreamlike, the way he's standing there and thinking. And yeah, maybe he would have freaked out. It's a really interesting end scene because it's comparing it to most endings, it's usually a little bit more dramatic one way or another. And what I feel that they're showing is that Tony's lost. He doesn't know, like, when's the last time he just kind of followed Carmilla around the house? She's not complaining, but she's kind of like, you want some leftovers? And he's like, yeah, because he'll say yes to anything, because he's lost. He doesn't know what to do right now, and he's just at home, and it doesn't even make sense that he would be home at that time. But he just kind of walks around and sits down and eats it, and we don't get a clear answer to what this means or what he's going to do. I don't even think he's hungry, but he's going to sit down and eat this just because it's the thing he's doing right now. And
At least it's something, because you're right. It's something to do, because, he's just aimlessly wandering around. So any suggestion someone had is like, okay, let's do that. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, much like Carmilla seems to aimlessly sort of sort mail and do things around the house, which adds to her feeling of not feeling useful in life. I mean, it's related to, she did start trading stock herself. She could go into business with Tony at this point. They have the same sort of interest there. It'll be interesting to see if that happens. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. They're just kind of sitting there, just like you and me, Jim.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a really well done, like I said, I was like excited to be back into the show and everything, and it's just a nice, like you said, everything, there's so much familiar, but it feels like everything's being built out more because we're introduced to these new characters, and things are starting to open up as far as the Tony Soprano's world here. And I mean, just the fact that he's at a place where he went to Melfi to try to get help, or even went to see another therapist, shows growth, dare I say?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know what's going to happen next, and that's part of the excitement, because like when I watched the first episode of The Sopranos, I kind of thought, okay, this is the show. This is the framework of the show. And what's going to happen? He's going to go in and talk about his mob stuff, and then he's going to do mob stuff and therapy stuff. And now it's like, no, he's not going to do therapy stuff. And he's going to do mob stuff, but he's the boss now. So I don't even know. I don't know what the next episode will be at all. So I look forward to it even more.
Absolutely. And like we said at the top of the show, if you got some thoughts on that episode, or even some upcoming episodes, we can bank them and get to it when we get to that episode. Send it on over to showswhatyouknowshow at gmail.com. And of course, we always appreciate podcast reviews on iTunes, either under Shows What You Know or Cut to Black, a Sopranos Sit-Down, or both.
Yes. Speaking of which, please do leave a review. We did get a new review from KCDK62, who wrote, "Watching Sopranos for the first time and looking for a podcast to accompany. This one is great. No spoilers. 5 stars. Thank you very much. We really can't express how much we appreciate that and all the people coming along on this journey. It makes it a lot more fun for everyone, and especially me, because I've never done it before, and I appreciate, like KCDK, I also appreciate that we don't have any spoilers except for what we've been up to, because I would not be able to listen to a Sopranos podcast because I'm sure most of them are like, oh yeah, remember season 6? I don't remember season 6. So thank you for helping me in my unsullied ears and eyes, Jim, and being my filter to the world. And thank you, listeners, for not reviewing with spoilers. So that's it for this week. On Twitter, you can find us at showswhatyouknow with a U, where we post the link to the live stream, which happens on every Sunday. We will now also be doing Westworld streams on Tuesdays, and on Sundays we will also be discussing Handmaid's Tale in our brand new show, The Gilead Gazette. We recommend The Handmaid's Tale. It's a very good show. We look forward to getting into season 2 very soon. So if you feel like checking any of that out, you can find it all at showswhatyouknow.com.
Absolutely. And you can find more of Jakob at awesomepedia.org. All kinds of good stuff, tons of content to go through. Of course, a YouTube channel as well. And you can find more from me at jimandthem.com.
Yes, and I do have, by the way, a video I've been working on for literally months. It's my follow-up to the Game of Thrones video. It's a video essay type thing, and it's coming out. It'll be out by the time this podcast is out, so please check it out at youtube.com/awesomepedia. Is there anything else, Jim?
Well, there is one more thing.
What's that?
Cut to black.